what then do you see, what strategic role do you then see Fahari Aviation just, seeing itself playing in just Kenya's broad agriculture modernization journey?
I think our two main impact areas that I talked about. First is making sure there's a return on investment on the investor here with Kenya Aerospace.
Yeah.
But the second thing is to make sure that there is a responsible use of this technology. And that this responsible use is not only kind of being propagated by Fahari Aviation, but there are other players who are able to provide a different array of services across the various sectors.
Yes, yeah.
So how we see this is that we will bring a lot of data-driven agricultural decision making. There are a lot of farmers who over time have increased. The smaller scale farmer, not the medium-sized farmers that we were talking about. Somebody was only farming 200 to 300 acres.
Yeah.
I have a client who is now already doubled their farm size now, because they are seeing there are many tools and there is a better chance of success.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to this episode of the TechTrends Podcast. So I wasn't sure if we should make this podcast part of. So as I was telling you, offline Hawkins, we produce 2 podcasts in-house. Actually 3, because we have the tech podcast, 2 of them, one that I produce, another one that they produce, then we have another one on sustainability.
Okay.
So when we were, of course, researching about what Fahari Aviation is doing around drones, of course, that's part of when you look at it from sustainability, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure, should we make this part of the Green Shift podcast, which is now Sustainability podcast, or now the tech podcast? But again,
I think it's an interesting time.
I know, yeah.
Indicates the kind of time that we're dealing with. You can't really choose a space and say, I will just deal with sustainability.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think it fits all the 3 podcasts. I think now it's up to you and the conversation that we'll have, and most importantly also the audience that we're looking at reaching.
Yes.
Know where best to place it.
Okay. Yeah, but again, as I always say, this podcast is where we explore the technologies, ideas, and of course, innovation shaping Africa's future. I'm a host, Nixon Kanali, and this episode we are recording live from Wojo, which is actually, one of Nairobi's growing hubs of innovation for any startup that is looking to actually set space. This is one of the spaces you can come to, Wojo in Nairobi Upper Hill. And today's conversation, as I said earlier, just sits at the intersection of agriculture, well, a bit, climate, cutting-edge technology. Now you see where the sustainability bit actually comes up, right? And of course, in Kenya, where agriculture still remains, a big backbone of our economy, the shift towards, data-driven, talking about precision farming, are becoming very critical. Not just even for just productivity, but again for sustainability and climate resilience. And of course, at the center of this transformation, it's Fahari Aviation. If you know KQ, like, I do, I cover KQ. Of course, I know about Fahari Aviation, which is a subsidiary of Kenya Airways. Of course, you are leveraging drone technology to just modernize farming, again, from things like precision farming. You are talking about in this startup you're working with called, that you mentioned, you're going to be talking about later on, and aerial mapping just to advance crop analytics. Of course, joining me in this episode is Hawkins. Hawkins, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
First question I always ask any guest to join us on any podcast. Is it your first time doing a pod?
A pod in its maybe purest form, yeah. This is my first pod per se.
Yeah.
But of course, I have engagements on pod-like conversations and setups. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, welcome, Hawkins.
Yeah.
So maybe just for our listeners or anyone watching this podcast, start by introducing yourself and telling us your role at Fahari Aviation.
Yeah, my background is mostly in engineering. I've worked in many engineering functions within Kenya Airways PLC and before that with other industry players. That's a career side. On the personal side, a husband and a father. Those are, I think, my 3 main responsibilities. In terms of background, giving you some more background into how we came up with Fahari Aviation.
Yeah.
Now, I think this really was sparked during COVID.
Yeah.
At that time, I was leading our engineering services function at Kenya Airways, and there was a bit of a lull in terms of industry activity. You'll remember the lockdowns.
Yes.
You couldn't move from one county to another. Even moving between countries was quite difficult at the beginning before we kind of got a grasp of what's going on. So what happened in KQ during that time is almost 98% of our revenue generation, which is in passenger services, got completely misaligned. So
98 is a big figure.
Yeah, 98 is big. I think KQ was only doing ancillary and cargo at only 2% of the total revenue. Of course, that has changed with time, and if you look at our latest figures. But a call for that was, how do we make sure that we diversify the business? To make sure that we are resilient, especially in difficult times when one avenue of how we make money, of how we create impact is impacted. So being from an engineering field and having worked in these spaces, we came up with an idea and said, why don't we use the upcoming technology to make sure that we are able to create other revenue streams for Kenya. And that's where technologies like the drone technology that we are currently discussing here, AM technology that's currently in development. So we identified a vehicle and said we are going to create an organization that's going to spearhead new technology into the aviation space. KQ has been there for quite some time. I think we're in our 50th year of just being KQ, and I'm not even talking about the East African Airways days. So there's sufficient domain expertise within the aviation space to allow us to roll out something very fast and to take advantage of that technology. And practically that's how Fahari Aviation was born.
Okay. Why do I feel like Fahari Aviation has been there pre-COVID? Was it?
No. Fahari Aviation is actually a COVID baby.
Oh, okay.
We started the company itself in 2020, deep of COVID. Of course, we had existing vehicles like any big corporate would have. As an entity, of course, it was registered way earlier. But as a vehicle for this particular purpose, we changed the name to Fahari Aviation and now started starting the business now. Keeping its foundation. The foundations are mostly, the first 2 years was mostly in just competency development across the various teams. Both doing the commercial feasibility, technically looking at who we have available, what can they do, and then also, of course, the equipment. So that took us about 2 years to set that all up, and there's also a lot of, being in the aviation industry, there's a lot of regulation. So compliance is also a big deal to make sure that when we start the company, we go full head.
Okay. So Fahari sits within Kenya Airways. And of course, as you mentioned, which is traditionally, an airline business. So I remember when I first started writing about, Fahari Aviation, one of the questions I kept getting, what is that strategic connection between an airline and the drone business? So there is a national carrier investing in agriculture drones. How does this align within KQ's just broader diversification strategy?
So if you look at the impact that drones can have across various industries, and not only in agriculture, so I'm looking at our key 4 or 5 main areas where we really put in a lot of effort in. Of course, agriculture is our top, and I think across the industry we are known to be the agricultural drone experts. But we have products in mapping, as you had mentioned earlier. We have surveillance products. We have, of course, inspection, critical infrastructure, major infrastructure inspection. But beyond that, what we use to enable is our training and consultancy, bringing in qualified expertise into the industry that can withstand the test of time and create the desired impact. Now, let me just connect to your question now. Let me just connect why it's very important for KQ to participate in this. The thing is twofold. There's significant impact that you can create. And with impact, of course, comes a possibility of return on investment. Return on investment means, of course, revenue and diversifying the airline. To the first question that we were looking at solving during COVID. The second thing, KQ is a national carrier. A national carrier, beyond just its commercial obligations, its financial prudence, has a responsibility to guide an industry or lead it to a certain extent. Provide the best practices that can exist in that space. And we saw this as a very good vehicle to bring what we've seen as a safety consciousness, security consciousness from a KQ perspective, and embed into an industry where maybe it was a little bit more lax from the kind of players that we were seeing coming in. So that, I think, was our two-prong approach in terms of investing in drones. I think figures have been shown across the world. You're looking at over $25 billion industry. So it's not a small space. It might be a small space at this time in our country, but given the space to grow, given its space to create impact, it has a lot of potential.
Right. Actually, because I've seen that working in Kigali, in Rwanda, actually. Yeah. Rwanda is investing so much in drones, including delivery, medicines, and all those things.
Yeah.
So if it can work in Kigali, in Rwanda, it can also work here.
And we have a bigger space in terms of the economy is bigger, the use cases are more broader.
Yeah.
So I think from a technology perspective, and this is to, I think, all the players, our counterparts in the industry, it's just to grab that opportunity and make sure Kenyans and the Kenyan economy can leverage this tech.
I'm just curious, maybe this is just a question that was not part of my notes.
Yeah.
Do you need a separate license for that, or since you're in the aviation, you really have the license to operate? You also need
Aviation is so regulated.
Yeah, I know.
To do, I come from an engineering background, and
Mm-hmm.
for you to work on any kind of aircraft, the kind of certifications that you need.
Totally
And
different.
all these aircraft are based on the same technology.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for you, for example, I'd give, of course, there are different sets of improvements between aircrafts, types and models. But for you to handle a Boeing 737 and handle a Boeing 787, and as much as the technology is similar, you still need a different pathway to certification for each of the aircraft. Yeah. The same would apply now to the drone side of things. So what our regulator has done, and that's the practice across the world, is that there's a separate certification for drone operators, with improvement drone technicians, and people in that particular ecosystem. The reason for that is it's not your typical manned aviation, so that there are nuances and specific items that one should be aware of as they come and provide service.
And the reason why I asked that is because I remember a couple of years back, owning a drone in Kenya was a very, very expensive affair. But again, we saw, the regulator now becoming more flexible. Yeah. Even had a bill go to parliament. It was passed on how to just regulate drones, which was a very good space to, to just get into. And that's why I like, that we're having this conversation. So now let's talk about the core of this transformation, right? Yeah. So we've seen it being linked, drone technology being linked to data-driven agriculture in Kenya, which is KQ's Fahari Aviation doing a very big job there. How exactly are these drones helping, farmers just move from, traditional observation to, let me call it evidence-based decision-making?
Data-driven.
Yeah.
I like calling it that, but I think your question is spot on.
Yeah.
Because if I look at I've talked to you about the verticals that we have within Fahari Aviation in terms of industries that we focus on. So for our agriculture focus is, how do we move from, because you're seeing drones used, I don't want to use the word rudimentary at this moment, but you're seeing just input application. So you're seeing drones spreading fertilizer, spraying inputs, be it various kinds of herbicides, fungicides, just depending on the crop itself. The good thing about agriculture, it's so wide.
Yes.
It's so wide. From a farmer growing sisal somewhere towards the coast, to a tea farmer in the highlands, to a rice farmer somewhere around the lake. Inputs and what you'd call the mechanics in terms of what the farmer is looking out for are very different. Yeah. The biggest business currently now is in application, so spraying and spreading. But what we've done as Fahari Aviation, we've moved that conversation further. So what we're able to do is we're able to come into your farm and do crop health surveillance or crop health monitoring. What gives you, in combination with agronomy, it's able now to make data-driven decisions where you are going, where you can say, for this particular part of my farm, I think it is doing well, especially if you're a big farmer, you're somewhere around 300, 400, 1,000 hectares. You're looking at this part of your farm looks more healthy than the other because the data is telling you. Some of the sensors that we have, like a multispectral sensor, can give you 12 shades of green. And according to those 12 shades of green, an agronomist can tell you where your crop is, what it's lacking, what you need to put in and in what quantities. So we are moving from a space where farmers used to rely mostly on history and say we always spread or spray this particular input in these quantities at this season. And say, let's take an example of 300 kilograms per hectare. And they'll do that every year. And since it wasn't so data-driven, the yield would not be affected significantly, and it would still be within expected ranges. So what we are bringing to the farmer is saying now, instead of putting in 300 kilos per hectare, this side of your crop is very healthy.
Yeah.
You can go with 150 or 100. But this other side needs a lot more support. So you can go with 400 or 350. What that does is that it equalizes yield across your entire farm. And the other thing, it's cost effective. Fertilizer is not cheap. I think you've seen the conversations around fertilizer in this country. And putting that decision in front of a farmer using this tool empowers them significantly in terms of now precision agriculture.
Yeah, I like you said that because I grew up from, I come from Kitale, and we farm, big time there. So when we were growing up, of course, we were making a decision. I would see my parents do that. They decide this is the right time to farm, and because we just didn't have enough data, you get tumeba mbolea yenye haitoshi. So when you're doing that, you get the farm inputs. You've exhausted them. Actually, planting the entire farm.
Yeah, we've not taken care of the
entire
farm. Yeah.
And it used to affect the yields. We plant now just once. It's annually.
One season.
Yeah. So once that's that's it. You can't do it again.
That's it. The opportunity to maximize that production element of the farm is completely gone.
Yep. And of course, now when you talk about this data, what kind of insights actually being collected by these drones? Okay. Of course, things like crop health, moisture. I was reading about moisture stress. Pest detection. How does this data now just get analyzed and not just translated into actionable, decisions, on the farm?
So what would happen is for a medium-sized farm. A medium-sized is something between 100 and 200 acres. Yes. That's why you get your mid-sized farms. Going beyond that, it starts becoming too large. Coming on this other side, the single hectarage is maybe too small to take advantage of the economies. Yeah. You need some level of scale for you to be able to leverage the data.
Yeah.
So what we do there is you go into a farm. Of course, we sit down with the farmer and have a discussion about what are the biggest pain points. At this point, it's not a one-size-fits-all, just because of the dynamics across geographies, across crops. So what a tea farmer might be keen on is not particularly what a wheat farmer is keen on. So we have to sit down with the farmer or a group of farmers. Now we have, and I'll speak to this later, we have products that are more focused towards a small-scale farmer who has been neglected by this technology for the few years that we've been there. But we'll come to that. So we'll go to this farmer and have that discussion. What are your key pain points? And of course, we have some level of experience. We've done a bit of more work that maybe the farmer might not be aware of.
Yeah.
And tell them these are additional insights that if you'd like, we could incorporate sensors to pick up this data for you. And because this data will be able to give you additional information about the health of your crop. Yeah. And then the other thing now we need to invest in is agronomy side. So ensuring that the data that we've picked, because the camera would pick so much data. Yes. It would pick the spectra in terms of the coloration of the plant. It will pick any other discrepancies on the leaf. So if I'm taking a coffee plantation, for example, we can be able to zoom in because this is very high quality cameras. We can be able to zoom in and see how is the crop actually faring, how are the leaves across the various areas. So you also, of course, geodata is already available. So you're able to see this particular crop in a certain portion of the farm is in this health condition. Yeah. So you're not particularly even, you have a GPS location. So you're not particularly even going to look for it. From the photo, you can get a GPS location and go verify, have that discussion with agronomists, have in terms of advice, in terms of how to manage the inputs and what inputs and how to manage them. And then you're able to either recover your crop or, of course, improve your yields.
Right. And that's a lot of data, which is very, very interesting, actually. Yeah.
Right now, we are seeing products even in the side of something you've mentioned, an insurance product.
Yes, yeah.
So from an insurance perspective, it's just managing that crop over time and seeing how it's been performing. So that with the various insurance policies and products that are available, an insurer and a farmer can have that discussion on how intervention has to be put in, be it earlier intervention or claim payout at the end of the season. Yeah.
All right. What then do you see, what strategic role do you then see Fahari Aviation just, seeing itself playing in just Kenya's broader agriculture modernization journey? Yeah.
I think our two main impact areas that I talked about. Yeah. First is making sure there's a return on investment on the investor here, who is Kenya Airways PLC.
Yeah.
But the second thing is to make sure that there is a responsible use of this technology. And this responsible use is not only kind of being propagated by Fahari Aviation, but there are other players who are able to provide a different array of services across the various sectors they are interested in.
Yeah.
So how we see this is that we will bring a lot of data-driven agricultural decision making. There are a lot of farmers who over time have increased. The smaller scale farmer, the medium-sized farmers that we were talking about. Somebody was only farming 200 to 300 acres.
Yeah.
I have a client who is now has already doubled their farm size now because they are seeing there are many tools and there is a better chance of success with the tools that are available. Of course, the drone technology being one of them.
Yeah. You know, I always see tech is one thing we can't just run away from.
Yeah, you can't.
There's a term I always people call Uberization, right?
Yeah.
You know, if something comes up, you have to go with it. You know, same with, for example, talking about AI and all this conversation right now. Those are things you can't run away from. And, you know, we've seen what Fahari Aviation is bringing is, you know, aviation-grade standards in agriculture, right? Which is quite unique, actually, when you look at it. How then does that influence areas like safety, reliability, you know, things like regulatory compliance, and even just trust among farmers?
Thank you for that one. Various areas that we've looked at, and there's a core flying aspect where you're looking at what's the standard, what's first the training, what's the standard that you're maintaining proficiency levels of your operators or drone pilots. But beyond that, we're looking into other areas. We bring a culture of continuous improvement from our background at KQ. And what that takes it to is some of the partnerships that we've been able to bring. Yeah. Not particularly for any other reason, but to improve our practice, to make sure that our people, our clients are getting the maximum value they can drive from what we're doing with them. I would mention maybe a few of them has been a partnership with agricultural research institutions. We've had engagements at Calro, and Calro is just looking at research into the drone use cases in the country. And the Ministry of Agriculture is really pushing out technology as a means of first making sure that our agriculture is more productive, but most importantly, it's more efficient. Yes. So we are putting in less resources for more yield.
Okay.
That is what the ministry is looking at. We've had discussions and we're progressing our conversations. I would also point out people like AAK Grow. AAK Grow are looking at responsible use of farm inputs, making sure that the farmers are getting the farm inputs on time and they are able to leverage the farm inputs responsibly. Things like how we look at the inputs that we have. How we take care of our own people who are applying these inputs. So we're looking at developing a lot of improvements. It might come up from, I don't want to call it rudimentary, but it might come up from that kind of a background, but with the consistency of the improvements across the various areas. Then we're able to, what you mentioned is to improve the standards across board in the entire industry. And we think everybody will benefit.
Right. And I like that actually having the support of the ministry. You know, I mean, because agriculture is the backbone, you know, of the country. So it only makes sense for even the government to support it. So that's, you know, a very good, you know, good thing. Yeah. And of course, just beyond now delivering, you know, services, because I think the entire industry, let me not say it's still a young industry in Kenya. Is it young or okay?
It is very young.
Yeah, very young, right? Is Fahari Aviation just contributing to the ecosystem growth? You know, are you also training drone pilots? You know, drone pilots is also actually a career in itself, right? So not anyone can actually just operate a drone. So, you know, training drone pilots just enable, you know, create employment for a lot of young people. What does the other impact look like, you know, from just where you're sitting?
It's significant. Just looking at the few years. And when we're young, Fahari Aviation, I think, went into full commercialization sometimes in 2023. That's when you could say we are really in the market, we have products that are fitting the market, and we have clients that who are eager to engage with us. That's our fourth year. This is our fourth year of operation, full-scale operation. So we are pretty young. I mentioned to people who would like to invest, because there's a lot of people who talk to me about investing into this space. And I tell them, I think we are, in projection, I think we are scratching less than 5% of the potential of the technology in this country. And that's across various sectors, not only in agriculture. I think agriculture is very natural to us because, as you said, it's a space almost all of us exist in, and it's a backbone of what we do as a country.
Yeah.
But now, in terms of empowering the ecosystem, we have trained over 150 pilots. At Fahari Aviation, we do not have 150 pilots. So it means there's a lot of pilots who we have trained who are either working for counterparts in the industry or they have started their own businesses.
Okay.
So that comes to a human impact. The good thing about drone to an extent is the threshold to entry is not as high. It's not like buying a helicopter or investing in manned aviation. So with a pretty sizable, not as big capital outlay, you can actually start an entity that is offering services. And if you're prudent as a businessman and you're continuously investing in your craft and in your customers, then I think you're able to grow out to a sustainable business. Now, drone operator or drone pilot does not seem like a big career at this moment. But automation and robotics is where it is at. So if you couple that with a lot of either data processing or look for partners who can help you with that, then you can actually make an entity that helps propagate the economy of this country in that particular industry. So very early days, but the industry is poised for growth.
All right. Yeah, I like that you say that because, again, remember earlier we said the regulator was a bit, tough a couple of years back, but now they're very, very flexible. So if you went up and started your own, as long as you just meet the legal requirements, you're good to go.
You're good to go, and there's continuous engagement between industry and regulator, and there are various forums that we've formed as drone operators in this country, just to make sure that engagement with various government entities, be it regulators, be it policy makers, is a continuous discussion. As you said, it's early days. There needs to be a lot of recalibration every now and then, just to make sure that we are getting the right impact from a results perspective, safety perspective. It's also very important because you've seen what drones are capable of all over the world.
And also maybe is the right time for us to now start having conversation like what we're having right now, for people to be aware that actually this is actually it's an industry you can tap into. So let's get a bit practical now. So one of the most talked about case studies for drones that we've seen even in other countries has to be, I think precision spraying. We've seen that happen a lot in a lot of countries. I think it's only until recently we've seen it now being used for deliveries, medical equipment.
Logistics,
logistics, exactly. We've seen that being very big in Kigali. We've seen even in Kisumu County doing medical pilots on the same as well. How does just drone spraying compare to traditional manual, or let me call it mechanized spraying, in terms of accuracy, coverage, and even just efficiency?
I think there's a niche for everything. And just looking at the size of farmers and crops that exist in our agricultural space, we are looking at the pace of drones. So I would compare, let's say maybe there are 4 or 5 input mechanisms that we can discuss. First is your usual knapsack. So I have a knapsack on my back. I go around my farm and spraying. Second one is your drone or also boom sprayers. You've seen the boom sprayers that go around farms as well. And then you have the other input providers, manned aircraft that are actually flying. So point there is from the various aspects as a farmer considers. So for example, if I'm a 1 acre farmer, maybe I do not have a lot of mass around me in terms of counterparts who are in the same crop, it becomes a bit difficult for me to hire and sustain drone services because the economies of scale do not exist. And this drone services provider, of course, needs a return on investment. And then there's a medium space where you're looking at somewhere between 200 and 1,000 acres. Or 200 to 1,000 hectares, all the way 10,000, 20,000 hectares, where with a good fleet of drones, you can fulfill this requirement in a very precise way. You'll notice that I'm underlining the word precision every time, because that's the differentiator between all modes of services compared to drones. So, for example, if I go into a farm right now and I have my team, we always do around 200 to 300 hectares a day of spraying with a full fleet. And we are able to sit down at the end of the day, at maybe 6 p.m. and get all that data from the drones.
Imagine if that was
I can know this drone had this level of input and it sprayed this amount of data.
Imagine doing that manual. 200 acres, that will take almost a month or even 2
That
weeks or
will
something.
take a month, and then if you use manned aircraft,
Yeah.
it removes precision, brings in a lot of waste.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing that we've come, and especially the bigger scale farmers have pointed it out as an advantage on what we have, is actually to reduce pilferage.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they know X number of bags were picked from the store. The drone people have told us they've sprayed or they've spreaded X number of tons. So you're able to know how much actually went to the farm and how much was waste and how much was privilege very easily. And with the cost of fertilizer actually in the market, some of the bigger farmers are saying there is more return on investment, preventing, of course it's a reflection on society and everything, preventing theft and pilferage than it is actually actionable at the outset at the yield, because the yield will come at the end of the season. But you're very well able to know that at this particular point in time, all the fertilizer that are required to go into the farm went to the farm. And if there were any savings, it's very clear in the store. Yeah.
All right.
That was not very possible earlier on.
Yes, it wasn't. I think that's basically even answers my next question, because one of the things, conversation that you've seen, even I've told you I come from a farming background. So conversation around the cost is always a very big concern, even for my parents back home when we're farming. What kind of evidence are you seeing when it comes to now just reduced, pesticides and even fertilizer usage, better targeting and the overall cost savings?
We've done a study with one of our customers, and we are seeing almost a 20% reduction.
20
in terms of usage.
Yeah.
On the yield side, there's also an improvement. So we can see the overall impact of a sustained use of drones is almost 30%.
Yeah.
From a revenue perspective, that's the yield side and the cost side, which is significant.
Yes.
Whether you're a 5-hectare farmer or you're farming 20,000 hectares, it is very significant for you to see those returns.
Yeah.
And over time, kind of compound them to something that is a lot more sustainable.
Yeah. Okay. And now on things like, on mapping, one of the biggest game changers you've seen come out of, drone technology is, aerial visibility. How does that mapping just help farmers detect issues early, even just prevent crop losses at an early scale?
Oh, so there's two areas of visibility. So the first visibility is the health surveillance, continuous surveillance of your crop health.
Yeah.
But there's also the security surveillance aspect, protecting your yield from theft.
Yeah.
That's also something that we have seen. A lot of farmers towards maturity incur a lot of losses.
Yeah.
So your crop that you've taken care of the last 4 to 6 months, all of a sudden somebody who has not been involved in the process comes and benefits from it. So it's also services that we offer in the agricultural space. That's security surveillance. But back to your original question about now, how do we continuously monitor the crop over time? So the good thing is when you're offering these services, you can still combine them with security surveillance.
Yeah.
So you do a surveillance operation with image capturing during the day. That helps you with your agronomists just go through how your crop looks like. And it's not every day. So you do that on a periodic basis. You'd either put in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, just depending on the crop.
Yeah.
These crops are all very different. And I'm learning so much from engaging in that industry.
I know.
And then you're able to capture that early enough.
Yeah.
Because part of what I know farmers struggle with is when intervention is too late.
Yes.
When intervention is too late, saving the crop becomes more difficult. So you want to intervene at the right time. And our farmers really rely on their farming. This is their livelihood. So for them to invest into this service and then get this intervention in good time and be able to first save their crop and then maximize yield on the other side is a very important tool for them.
Yeah. Trust me, early detection in agriculture is, agriculture is not like, for example, how you will drive your car, notice there's a problem, can easily get into get a mechanic, fix it. In agriculture, once your crop it's
gone,
that's it.
Saving it is expensive.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
Yeah, especially saving it down the line.
Yes.
The inputs required might outweigh the benefits at the other end. So I really understand you.
Yeah. Hawkins, let's now talk about the case studies and partnerships that we've seen Fahari Aviation get into. So we've seen you work with I think one of the most notable examples I got when I was researching about the partnership was with is it called Kipkebe Farms?
Yeah.
Yes. So talk to us about this partnership. What motivated it, and what were the initial goals when drone tech was introduced at that farm?
Yeah, I think I'm very happy to report that Kipkebe was our actual big, not even big, our actual first customer. in the agricultural space.
Okay.
And Kikebe, is part of the Sasini group.
Yes, part of the Sasini group.
Is their tea farm company.
And huge chunks of land.
Big chunks and very forward thinking.
Yeah.
In terms of implementation of technology, I think they took up drone provision of services when most of the other sector players were on the sidelines fast watching to see what will come out of this. Do we have sufficient benefit from it to actually invest? So we had this discussion. Of course, we reached out to them. We had the discussions. We're looking mostly at spreading. Tea farmers don't particularly use pesticide and insecticide. The way Kenyan tea is protected, they only use fertilizers. So we went into spreading fertilizer on their side. And I must admit, it was a learning curve for both of us.
Being your first client,
being our first client, and they're not small.
They're
not small, they're a huge client. I think they're almost looking at 2,000 hectares under tea cultivation, especially in the Kipkebe side. So when we started with them, there were a lot of learning points on both sides, looking at how best is to do our job in terms of operational efficiencies. We were not able to scale to the level that we had anticipated to get to, so we had to come back, recalibrate with the team, see the interventions that we need to put in. Initially, we would do 2 splits a year. So a split the first one is around April, May. We are currently actually on site with them right now. And the other split is October, November. And we've over time improved those efficiencies to a place where they are getting full impact and full value on their side. We are continuing with various proof of concepts around security surveillance. We've done some work on also what I was mentioning to you, crop health surveillance. So I'm seeing Kipkebe continue to take up technology to make sure that they manage their farm efficiently. It's farming is very sensitive to what you've mentioned. So sometimes you'd go through a very tough season and it becomes very difficult for you to come back from it. So I think what their mantra is from discussion with their leader is they want to stay ahead of the game so that they can take advantage of any tools and any technology that's available to make sure they don't go into a tough season.
We've also seen, is it AgGrow as well?
AK Grow.
It's AK Grow. Then Crop Life as well.
Crop Life.
Talk to us about that as well.
That's also part of our continuous improvement on standards. That's mostly looking at use of inputs, be it fertilizer, pesticide, herbicide, and fungicide side of things. Improving our standards. As I told you earlier, we are always looking to improve how we deliver. We are always looking to make sure that our farmers have the best accessible service, and also working with other regulators just beyond aviation. The thing is, come from an aviation background. So our regulators are mostly the ones around regulating aviation activity. So Civil Aviation Authority of Kenya, you're looking at Communications Authority of Kenya. And those are usually traditional, I would say. Traditional, but there are other regulators in other spaces where we need to look at those standards and also decide for ourselves how we are going to implement the same, just to make sure that our people, our customers are getting the best standards this country has to offer. So that's part of our just continuous improvement into the service.
Okay, so implementing, learning, and improving,
Continuous. As I said, it's 3-4 years in? There's a lot to learn.
But 3-4 years, you're doing well. 3-4 years, that's still a very good, so many good case studies, which now will help you keep improving on even,
And I think this was the whole promise on the KQ side. When they were looking at starting this organization. They were looking at something that could go into the future of aviation. We talk about the future of aviation in so many aspects. Be it technology, guys going to move away from fossil-powered engines, for example, on the aircraft side. And then people like us are advancing what we call advanced air mobility. That's alternative propulsion on that side. So this particular vehicle, that's Fahari Aviation, is meant to bring the group into the new space of the technology that exists in aviation. I think we are flying Dreamliners very well. We are flying in the group. Jambojet is part of it. There's a lot of impact in the aviation space, and I think this will just enhance it.
I'm trying to imagine how that board meeting or that meeting was like when you're pitching the idea of
Oh, okay. I think I went back there quite a number of times. It was a very hard time for KQ, and it was a question that was in its time.
Yeah.
But the board having that foresight to make those kind of decisions at that time. At that time, as I told you, our top line collapsed by over 95%.
Yeah.
So it's a very difficult position for the board to make those decisions.
Okay.
And I think they believed in what KQ's promise is and what we can actually do for this country and the region.
Yep. Maybe when they see this happening now, they're like, okay, maybe we should have started this early. Maybe.
We're here now.
Yeah, we're here now, yeah.
Yeah.
And even just across these collaborations, any before and after insights, that you've seen really demonstrate the value of drone-powered agriculture?
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah.
As I keep saying, I come from, yes, I had a view on potential of the technology and what it can do, and mostly from an engineer's perspective. But I think from a people perspective, it continues to open our eyes every day.
Yeah.
What people can do on their own, create new livelihoods just by empowering them by education in this drone. What farmers can access in terms of impact by using this technology.
Yes.
I think these are the kind of things that open up every day. And with the way the tools are really improving. And I mean the equipment, the aircraft themselves, and the sensors that we put on these aircraft to gather data for us. And with time, there will be a lot of, and these tools are coming up, and I mean processing tools for those data that can give farmers and people in the ecosystem more insights on how to maximize on their products. So I think, as you said earlier, there's a lot of potential that has not been tapped into.
Yeah.
And it's upon organizations like Fahari Aviation and our partners to make sure that this impact is felt across the farming ecosystem.
Okay.
And we keep that discussion with our equipment manufacturers on the drone and sensor side. We keep that discussion with policymakers. Keep that discussion with regulators across board, and also, of course, the key person who is consuming all this, and that's the farmer.
Okay. And not just speaking of potential, what lessons would you share with other, just agribusinesses that are considering now just adopting drone technology? Data.
I think it might not have value immediately, maybe for you as a farmer or for you as a service provider, but with time you start to understand how some data sets are related to others.
Yeah.
As we continue, as you said, agriculture, I think, can improve significantly in this country if we continue working together to make sure that data becomes a centerpiece in decision making. I think the benefits will be easier for the bigger farmers to realize at the beginning. But I still think that smaller farmer who is maybe farming 5 hectares, who is farming 20, who is farming 100, will still gather these benefits as we continue to improve, both on our side, providing the service, and the understanding across the entire agriculture ecosystem. One thing that we've done now, we've started bringing in production managers, because we realized very quickly the small-scale farmer could maybe not access our services, but we think there's value for this farmer in our services. So what we do is that we bring production managers who work at the local point and bring the farmers together. So if they can aggregate the farmers to something like 100 or 200 acres, then they're able to access our services at prices that are palatable and indicate those economies of scale. Because if you live here, or even if you live near the farmer and still do a 5-hectare job, spreading those costs that are involved in making sure that this business runs becomes difficult. But if you're able to spread them over 100 acres, you're able to spread them over 200 acres, I think they become more accessible to the farmer. So our next point in terms of agricultural execution is to get to the smaller farmer.
Okay, that's a very good point, actually. And I'm glad you mentioned data. Do you still say that is the new oil, or what oil was replaced with?
What is it now? And data goes to the whole AI discussion.
Exactly,
I can see there are so many policymakers and various institutions that are involved in the agricultural space in Kenya that are looking at developing first, capturing the data, because it's not entirely there. There's a lot of gaps in the agricultural data, and then seeing now what can we do with this data? What are the interventions? What are the improvements? What are the innovations that we can put across for our farmers, across all the spaces? And there's a lot of activity that we are also involved in that is looking at that side of the conversation.
All right.
So there's more to come once we meet up next time.
Okay. We're almost coming to the end of this podcast. But again, Kenya and even just Africa, broadly is facing a very increased pressure when it comes to food security and even just things around climate change, right? How do you see now drone technology just contributing to more resilient, should I call it more resilient, agricultural system in the coming years?
So the various aspects to look at it. The first one, of course, is putting better tools in people's arms. Be it your local service provider from a drone perspective. So that gives them first a livelihood and then ensures that the local ecosystem has better tools to get a better yield. The second bit is from a cost perspective. Use of these tools gives you, on average, over a component period of time, 30% less cost. And that's something that has been shown in the market, of how farmers are able to achieve from it. Be it the amount of inputs that you're putting in, be it better management of the crop health, be it improvement of the yield at the end of it. Those are the key main areas. And of course, there are various pockets like theft, pilferage, but those are smaller pockets. Additionally, if you're looking at improved food systems, you're looking at what we could do with now the improved yield. So we are able to spread a lot of that within the country and making us more food secure. Maybe the other third one is the availability of data. That availability of data is able to make policymakers shape decisions in terms of what the country requires, where it can get it from, and how can we get it from the food baskets in this country to other areas that are not maybe endowed with production capabilities of food. So that becomes that's the way we see this equipment playing into the food security or the food systems of this country. It will be a journey. I don't think it's something that we wake up in 2027 or 2028. I know. We fixed it. That persistent and continuous engagement across all stakeholders will, over time, improve the food systems of this country.
All right.
And then solve it.
Yeah, and of course now we are hearing things to do around, a lot about AI, automation, swarm drone fleets, you mentioned earlier, sensors integration, which is a very, very big conversation. Which of these innovations are you most excited about just when it comes to the future of farming in Africa?
I think for me is two things, First is the data collection aspect you've talked about. You've talked about IoTs. These IoTs are integrated IoTs. So you have very many sensors. Some that you can put in the ground, some that you can put onto crops, some that you can put on our drones. That if interconnected and this data is interlinked, to give you a sensible outcome on what policymakers and stakeholders can do, it will be very important. So the second bit automatically becomes processing that data. So what aspects? AI for me is process automation at a massive scale or complex process automation. And process automation or task automation is looking at what we'll do maybe from one input perspective. And if you automate it, how many other inputs are you able to process? And then correlate the data and let it give you insights. So for me, those capture and processing, capture not only from drones but from other sensors, and then processing, putting in the processing tools, be it softwares and all that, to make sure they give you insights into what we can do. I think that will change not only agriculture, but will change a lot of systems, be it in conservation, be it in management of land, be it in also other aspects, inspection of big infrastructure, even surveillance to an extent. What drones do at a massive scale is collect data. It's up to us to decide how we're going to process it and how we're going to make use of it.
Okay, even just, as we end up talking, so, we said the industry is still very, very young, very, very young, like it's an infant at Jafika Gen Z. But,
it's still crawling.
Still crawling, exactly, So what do you think needs to change to actually scale the adoption? Is it policy, is it awareness, what needs to change?
I could say all of them, but let me just highlight a few of them to better explain the space. We'll start at the top level, that's policy. Just looking at how we are able to access and operate the equipment, how we are able to empower industry players in terms of their ability to reach the market and provide products for the same. The other bit that I think will come with time, but we are seeing more and more of it. I've had this conversation since 2020 when we started creating Fahari Aviation. I've had discussions with investors,
Yeah.
and at that time it didn't look very enticing as an investment option, but we are seeing more and more money flow into
The interest is now
projects.
here. Yeah. Okay.
Projects that can collect critical data. And I'm seeing this from policymakers within and without government.
Yeah.
We are seeing this from other industry players and just generally investors into the food systems.
Yeah.
So that will continue. For the general public, and general public, I don't mean it just from an awareness standpoint. And I want to put more awareness somehow part of knowledge, but the knowledge is a lot more.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is this equipment can be used into many other sectors of our economy and the industry. So as industry players, together with our regulators and stakeholders, we need to push that knowledge out there. To know these are equipment you can use 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5 things. And that will create, I think, more responsible players into the ecosystem. It will create better products for our customers at the end of it all. We are there for return on investment. The better products we create, it means we're able to drive more value for our customers and make a better return for ourselves.
All right. Thank you so much, Hawkins.
Cheers.
What more should we expect to see from aviation just, in a couple of months or weeks or even?
This year, there's a lot more projects that we're doing. There's a lot of work in surveillance and logistics.
Yes.
We hope to give the industry good news. We're expanding our portfolio of products from a training perspective. We're bringing in more specialized courses. That's something that we've done over our time. So we go into an industry, we get a level of experience, we bring in a few experts, we create curriculum for that particular industry, because use of drones in various industries is very different.
Yes.
We're looking into our other upcoming technologies. We're doing more on the advanced air mobility side.
Yeah.
That's more closer to our passenger goals at the end of it all. So there's a lot of projects within Fahari Aviation that we're working on, and of course at various stages of maturity. Yeah. And at the right time, I think we will be coming with the good news to the public and this entire space, technology space.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for just finding time to join us, on this podcast. Really appreciate it, actually. Quite an insightful conversation. And of course, that's a wrap for this episode of the TechTrends Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, of course, don't forget to subscribe, share, leave us a comment. It helps more people discover this podcast. And of course, helps us to even reach more people. We get to sit down and talk about technology and conversations shaping tech and sustainability in Kenya and across Africa. And of course, for more stories at the intersection of tech, technology, innovation, and sustainability, please visit our platforms, TechTrends, and of course, our other sustainability publication, that is EcoNews, for more of these stories. I'm Nixon Kanali. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you